They say betrayal doesn't arrive with a bang. It seeps in, subtle and quiet, like a draft beneath a closed door. In my case, it came in the form of lavender-scented sheets and a text message that was never meant for me. But I didn't know that yet. That Friday morning began like most others. Eleanor, my wife of 8 years, was bundled under the covers when I stirred at 6:30. She looked pale, a soft sheen of sweat across her forehead, her lips barely parting as she murmured, "I think I'm coming down with something." I paused beside the bed, coffee steaming in my hand. "Do you need anything? I can call Dr. Ferris." She shook her head weakly. "No, just rest. I'll be fine. You go. I don't want you to catch this." She offered a tired smile, and I leaned down to kiss her forehead. Her skin was warm, but not unusually so. Still, I believed her. Why wouldn't I? Eleanor wasn't dramatic. If anything, she played down her discomfort to a fault. I'd seen her battle through migraines and menstrual cramps without a peep. A fake illness wasn't something I'd ever expect from her. I left the house quietly, letting the door click shut behind me as the early fall air greeted me. It was one of those September mornings where the sky seemed to glow from within, soft light diffusing through mist and the smell of damp earth. The neighborhood was still asleep. Only the paper boy had stirred, dropping off the day's news like clockwork. My drive to the office was uneventful. I handled operations at a mid-size architecture firm. My role was logistical, not creative. I left the designing to the dreamers while I ensured their dreams didn't collapse under regulatory weight or faulty materials. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid well, and I was good at it. Midway through the day, I received a text from Eleanor. "Laying down. Still feel awful. Hope your day's not too crazy, Purple Heart." I responded with something sweet, a simple "feel better soon" and a heart emoji, then got back to my spreadsheet. It was later, around 9 p.m., that everything began to shift. I was sitting in the den, a tumbler of whiskey resting on the arm of my chair, a book splayed across my lap unread, when my phone buzzed. A message from James, a friend of mine who wasn't particularly close to Eleanor. We'd known each other since college, reconnected recently when he moved back into town after a nasty divorce. "James, hey. Man, is Eleanor out of town?" I frowned. "Me? No, she's homesick." "Why?" 3 dots bubbled, then stopped. Started again. "James, saw her at Lux tonight. Club downtown. Thought maybe it wasn't her, but pretty sure." My stomach sank, slow and steady like a stone dropped into a lake. "Me? You're sure?" "James, I've got a photo. Want me to send it?" My fingers hesitated. I already knew what he'd say next, didn't I? "Me? Yeah." The picture arrived seconds later. There she was, Eleanor, in a sleeveless black dress I'd never seen before. The lighting in Lux was dark, moody, purple-washed, but there was no mistaking her posture, her profile, the way her hair fell in soft waves. And next to her, a man. Taller, with a clean fade and a navy blazer. He was leaning in too close. Her smile was wide and real in a way it hadn't been in months. I stared at the screen as the silence around me thickened. A cough of laughter from the TV, left on mute. The distant hum of the fridge. My own breath, slow and shallow. I didn't text James back. Instead, I sat there until the ice in my glass melted, turning the amber liquid thin and lifeless. What followed was not rage. Not immediately. It was confusion, a static fog in my mind that made no sense of the image I had seen. I couldn't reconcile the woman in that photo with the woman who had clutched her stomach and winced in our bed 12 hours earlier. I crept upstairs like a thief. Our room was dark, the sheets undisturbed on her side. Empty. Of course it was. Her car hadn't been in the driveway, but I hadn't noticed. I'd assumed she was resting, curled up somewhere in the house. How could I not see it? The night air pushed in through the open window as I stood there, staring at the place where she should have been. On the nightstand, her half-used bottle of lavender essential oil, the one she dabbed on her temples when she wasn't feeling well, stood like a mocking totem. That's when my hands started shaking. I went back downstairs. My body was in motion before my thoughts could catch up. I checked her usual hiding places. Drawers. Her desk. The basket of bills she pretended to sort every week, but never did. Nothing. Until I opened her purse, left hanging behind the coat closet door. Inside, nestled between a lipstick and a small mirror, was a folded receipt from that night. Lux, time-stamped 8:43 p.m., 2 drinks. A violet storm, and a midnight fire. And one more thing, a hotel room keycard. I sat on the stairs, back against the wall, clutching the keycard in one hand and the receipt in the other. She didn't even bother hiding it. I don't know how long I sat like that, but eventually I heard the front door. The lock turned. Soft footsteps on the tile. She was home. I remained still, cloaked in the shadows of the stairwell. From where I sat, I could see her silhouette. She moved quietly, heels in one hand, the black dress clinging to her frame. She walked past the hallway mirror and caught her own reflection. She paused. For a moment, it seemed like she was staring at herself, perhaps weighing the lie she'd returned to in the morning. Then, she vanished upstairs. I didn't follow. Not that night. Instead, I stayed awake on the couch until dawn, holding that keycard between my fingers like it was a fragment of a truth I had refused to believe. But belief didn't matter anymore. Reality had already shifted. The next day, I told her I was driving upstate to visit an old friend. She didn't ask many questions. I imagined she thought she was safe, that the lie had landed, soft and intact, that I had no reason to doubt her. She was wrong. Because in the quiet of the morning, with dew still fresh on the grass, I made a decision. This wasn't going to end with tears and pleas. I was going to expose everything. And when I did, I would do it in a way she'd never forget. 2 days passed before I saw her again. Really saw her. I told Eleanor I needed the weekend to clear my head. Said I was feeling overwhelmed at work. It wasn't a lie, technically. I was overwhelmed. Just not by contracts and deadlines. I drove to the cabin my uncle left me in Newfield, a place I hadn't visited in years. It had no cell signal and barely any electricity. A weathered fireplace, rusted wind chimes, and now, an ever-growing list of memories I didn't ask for. There, in the dark and the quiet, I thought. I thought about her face the morning she said she was sick. The perfectly timed cough. The way she rolled away from the light. I thought about the text she sent while I sat in traffic, about the gentle heart emoji at the end. I thought about the club photo and the hotel keycard in my glove compartment. And I thought about the man beside her, the way his hand hovered too close to her waist, how she leaned into him like gravity had chosen him over me. That image gnawed at me. Sunday night, I returned. When I stepped through the door, Eleanor was in the kitchen wearing my old college sweatshirt, her hair tied in a loose knot. A pot simmered on the stove. She looked up with that practiced smile. "Hey, stranger. You okay?" "I'm fine," I said, dropping my keys into the bowl. "Just tired." She walked over and kissed my cheek. I let her. The scent of lavender clung to her skin again. This time not from illness, but the same essential oil she used every night. A clever touch, really. The scent she'd weaponized as a symbol of fragility. Innocence. Dinner was lentil soup. She served it in silence. Occasionally, her eyes flicked toward me as if searching for cracks. I gave her none. My face, a mask. My voice smooth. "Didn't get much done while you were gone," she said between bites. "Spent most of the weekend on the couch." I nodded. "Good. You needed rest." She smiled. "Yeah, I feel a lot better now." I wanted to slam my bowl into the wall. Instead, I stirred the soup, imagining it was her lie dissolving into broth. After dinner, she excused herself to shower. I watched her walk away, noting the bounce in her step, the absence of fatigue. She was practically humming. That night, I didn't sleep beside her. I claimed the couch. Still adjusting to being back, I told her. Didn't sleep well at the cabin. She looked disappointed, but not surprised. I was giving her space, she probably thought. Guilt-free space. When I heard the water running upstairs, I slipped out to her car. The keycard was gone from the glove box. She'd noticed. Or maybe she was being proactive, cleaning up evidence. Either way, it confirmed what I needed to know. She hadn't forgotten that night. She was just hoping I had. The next morning, I began the real work. I took an early train to the city and stopped by a private investigations office I'd quietly researched months ago, back when a friend of mine had gone through something similar. The place was discreet. Tinted windows, unassuming signage. Inside, it smelled faintly of old coffee and copier ink. The investigator was a man named Roland, ex-military, mid-50s, shaved head, deliberate speech. He listened without judgment, nodding as I laid out the situation. "So, you want surveillance?" he asked after a long pause. "Yes. Full detail. I want to know who he is. I want time stamps, addresses, hotel bookings. Everything." He nodded again. That'll take a few days. Discretion is our specialty. You won't hear from us unless we have something. I handed over the hotel keycard. Start here. He took it without flinching. By Thursday, they had a name. Gregory Langford. 41. Investment consultant. Single. Divorced. Lives in a high-rise on Mercer Street. The photos came next. One of them together, arms linked outside a cafe. Another of Eleanor entering his apartment building at 7:12 p.m. Tuesday night, leaving just before midnight. Her hair was damp in the exit shot, her coat unbuttoned. She was smiling. Each image was time-stamped. Precise. Clinical. I stared at them for an hour in the office bathroom, my hands trembling. Every pixel screamed betrayal, but none louder than the softness in her eyes as she looked at him. A softness I hadn't seen directed at me in months. Later that evening, she called and asked if I could pick up dinner. I just don't have the energy, she said, her voice lined with exhaustion. This week's been brutal. I stared at the screen for 5 full seconds before responding. Me. Sure. What are you craving? Her, sushi. Something light. Me. You got it. The lie tasted bitter in my mouth as I drove home. But I wasn't ready to confront her. Not yet. I wanted the ground beneath her to shift the same way it had under mine. Slowly. Relentlessly. I wanted her world to tremble with the weight of being caught. Not with rage, but with silence. With precision. I needed a plan. So, I started crafting one. First, I spoke with Roland again. I want audio, I said. Conversations. Not just sightings. He suggested a portable recorder disguised as a USB charger. I slipped it into her bedroom outlet the next day. Next, I cloned her phone. It took an hour, a borrowed device, and a brief window when she left her purse unattended during a shower. I copied her messages, app history, call logs. Everything. That night, I scrolled through her digital life while she slept 3 rooms away. There were texts to Gregory. Dozens. Hidden under the name Danny, her old college friend. Last night was magic. Still thinking about your hands. Can't stop smiling. He suspects nothing. And the worst one. I told him I was sick again. He bought it. My jaw clenched so tight I thought my teeth might splinter. My hands didn't shake this time. They moved with purpose, with precision. I forwarded everything to a private folder, zipped it, encrypted it. When I returned the cloned phone, I did it with the calm of a surgeon. She had no idea. By Saturday, I had enough ammunition to destroy her. But something in me hesitated. Not because I doubted the facts. They were irrefutable now. But because revenge, when it becomes real, stops being abstract. It has edges. Wait. The opportunity came when she left her laptop open. I stood behind her chair, pretending to search for a charger, when I saw it. An open Google Doc titled Letters to You. It was a journal. A digital diary. A place she wrote to him. I clicked it open, careful not to shift anything, not to touch the trackpad more than once. You make me feel real again, it began. I didn't expect this. I didn't expect to fall. But every time I lie to him, I wonder if I'm still a good person. Then I see you, and I don't care. I don't care what it costs. She was writing him love letters while I made her tea and picked up her dry cleaning. That night, I couldn't breathe. Not because of what she felt for him, but because of how little she seemed to feel for me. And that's when I decided. I wouldn't yell. I wouldn't cry. I wouldn't even tell her she was caught. Instead, I would build something bigger. I would take everything she gave him, her secrets, her stories, her stolen hours, and I would reshape them into a moment she'd never forget. A mirror, one she couldn't look away from. I would wait until she thought the storm had passed. Then I would bring the sky down on her. And just like that, the blueprint was drawn. I've always believed in precision. Maybe it's the architect in me. Maybe it's just how my mind is wired, drawn not to chaos, but to structure, to symmetry, to seeing every thread in the tapestry, even the ones no one else notices. So when I decided to dismantle Eleanor's illusion, I didn't throw a fit. I drew a schematic. I drafted blueprints, metaphorical, of course, but exacting in their design. This wouldn't be an explosion. No, explosions are messy. This would be a slow collapse, calculated and clean. It began with a dinner party. Just a quiet, tasteful gathering with a few close friends, or so I said. Eleanor hadn't been enthusiastic about the idea, claiming she had work, fatigue, the usual vague resistance. But I pushed gently. Just a few people. We haven't hosted in months, I said, brushing a stray hair from her cheek. You used to love this. And she did once. Or at least she pretended to. That Friday, the house was spotless. Candles lit. Music low. I catered everything. No effort required from her beyond showing up. I made sure her favorite Pinot was open on the counter when she stepped in from her supposed late shift. She looked surprised. Didn't know we were starting so soon, she said, dropping her keys. You're just in time, I replied, handing her a glass. It was a modest guest list. A few mutual friends. 2 of my colleagues. One couple she didn't recognize. A man and a woman from my firm's legal team, introduced simply as Ben and Kara. She didn't blink. Not then. Ben, of course, wasn't just legal counsel. He was also the one who helped me file for divorce, quietly, and with all the relevant evidence attached. The paperwork was already signed and sealed, just waiting for my cue. Kara? She specialized in digital forensics. Her laptop had already cloned Eleanor's again earlier that afternoon. The evening unfolded gently, effortlessly. Eleanor sipped wine, made small talk, wore the mask of the perfect wife. I watched her float through the room like a specter. Charming, gracious, delicate, and felt nothing. No affection, no sadness, just detachment. Like an engineer watching a bridge about to fail, already knowing the blueprint was flawed. The moment came midway through dessert. Kara leaned over, smiling politely, and asked Eleanor, "So what do you do exactly?" "Design consultation," she replied smoothly. "Mostly freelance now. It gives me flexibility." "Must be nice," Kara said. "Do you work out of a studio?" Eleanor shook her head. "Home mostly. Sometimes cafes." "Ah," Kara said, and offered a little smile that meant nothing and everything. Nothing more was said. No alarm sounded. No suspicion flickered across Eleanor's face. But I watched her eyes tighten just a bit. A shadow. A flicker. She didn't know it yet, but the dominoes were already falling. The next stage was timing. Saturday morning, I told her I had a site visit in Connecticut and would be gone until Sunday night. "Just a quick client check-in," I said. "Shouldn't take long." She barely reacted. Just a kiss, a reminder to drive safe, and a half-hearted promise to save me some leftover risotto. I left the driveway at 9 a.m. sharp. By 9:17, I was parked 3 blocks down, behind an unmarked van with blacked-out windows. Inside were Roland and his team, monitors glowing. At 10:03, Eleanor left the house in black jeans and a loose sweater, hair up, no makeup, her invisible look. She drove to a pharmacy, picked up a pack of gum and a bottle of water, then walked 2 blocks to a boutique hotel on the edge of downtown. Room 604. That was Gregory's room. Booked every Saturday. Same time, same place. The footage from the hallway camera was surgical. Eleanor, glancing over her shoulder. Gregory, opening the door shirtless. A kiss before the door closed. I watched the entire feed in silence. Roland said nothing, just handed me a flash drive at the end. "I think that should do," he said. "Yes," I replied. "It does." On Monday morning, I requested a meeting with Gregory. Not as a husband, as a prospective client. I used a fake name. New email. Burner phone. I posed as someone looking to expand his investment portfolio. Claimed I'd been referred by a mutual contact. Gregory took the bait. Of course he did. He smelled opportunity in tailored suits. We met at a quiet rooftop bar. Mid-afternoon. The sky was overcast, but the view was decent. Tall buildings and distant rivers. He was smug. Confident. Wore his charm like a wristwatch. Visible. Predictable. For show. I played the part of the curious investor perfectly. Asked questions. Sipped scotch. Let him believe I was impressed. Then, as he leaned in to sell me on some emerging fund strategy, I slid a black envelope across the table. He looked at it. Then at me. "What's this?" I smiled. "Something you'll want to open in private." "Why?" "Because I know who you are, Gregory." He blinked, face still as stone. "I know where you take her. I know what you whisper to her in bed. I know which hand you use when you unlock your phone." He sat back slowly. "You're—" "Yes," I said. "I'm the husband." He didn't speak. "Here's how this works," I continued. "You stay away from her. You stop contacting her. If you see her on the street, you turn and walk the other way. Do that, and I'll forget your face. Cross that line, and I'll show that envelope to your boss, your clients, your family, and your board of directors." He opened it. Inside were photos, texts, screenshots, audio, everything. He exhaled slowly, like a balloon losing air. "You can't." I can't, I said quietly. And I will. Unless you disappear. He left the bar 10 minutes later, eyes down, hands shaking. I stayed, finished my drink, and deleted the burner number. That night, Eleanor was waiting on the porch when I got home. There was something off in her expression. You okay? I asked. She nodded, but her voice was fragile. Yeah, just rough day. I gave her a small smile. Want to talk about it? She shook her head. Not tonight. We went inside. I watched her movements, slower than usual. Distracted, like someone had shaken the snow globe of her life, and the flakes hadn't yet settled. She had no idea I'd met him. No idea what I'd done. She thought she was still dancing across a web she'd spun in secret. But I had the scissors now, and I was ready to cut. It all culminated on a Tuesday. I came home early. Eleanor was working in the kitchen, laptop open, fingers tapping. I set a folder on the counter. She glanced at it, confused. What's that? I looked her dead in the eye. The last 8 months of your life. She opened it. Inside, stills from the hallway cameras. Transcripts of texts. A printed copy of her letters to you Google document. Her face drained of color. I don't understand. You don't have to, I said, stepping back. Her hands trembled as she flipped through the pages. I watched it happen. The dawning, the horror, the realization that every lie had been cataloged, time-stamped, preserved like insects in amber. Then I handed her the final page. A single document. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Filed. Signed. Stamped. She looked up at me, eyes glassy. You knew? I nodded. All this time. All this time. Her mouth opened. Closed. She looked for words and found none. I didn't wait for an apology, or an explanation, or tears. Instead, I walked to the front door, opened it, and held it wide. For the first time in months, I said, I'm telling the truth. She hesitated, then picked up her purse, grabbed the folder, and walked out. No suitcase, no shoes, just the truth, finally crashing down on her like a wave. But it wasn't over. Not yet. Because there was still something she didn't know. Something that would flip her entire world upside down. Something that would come in a single, innocuous envelope. Mailed 3 days later. Stamped with the name of a clinic she didn't recognize. Inside was one sheet of paper. A DNA test result. And the truth it carried would destroy everything she thought she'd salvaged. It arrived on a Thursday. A nondescript manila envelope with no return address. Just her name, written in tight, impersonal letters across the front. Eleanor Wyatt. I watched from across the street as she pulled it from her mailbox, standing barefoot on the porch of the apartment she had rented downtown. Her hair was unbrushed. Her robe hung unevenly, like it had been grabbed in haste. She held the envelope in both hands as though it were radioactive. Then, with deliberate movements, she turned, walked back inside, and shut the door behind her. I waited 10 minutes before leaving. I didn't need to see her face when she opened it. I could already picture it. The clinic letterhead was crisp, the kind of paper that practically sliced your fingertips if you weren't careful. Beneath it, a single line in bold. Paternity analysis. Probability of relatedness between Mr. Nathan Wyatt and subject, child A 0%. There were 2 additional entries below it. The second, subject, child B 0%. And the third, the one that mattered most. Both children biologically related to subject, Gregory Langford. The truth, in black and white. Not only had she betrayed me, she had rewritten the very foundation of my life. The names I'd whispered in the dark. The little hands that had clung to mine. The scraped knees I'd bandaged. The stories I'd read aloud. The lullabies I'd hummed under my breath. None of it had been real. The betrayal hadn't started with a lie about being sick. It had started years before, with choices made behind closed doors. With a different kind of deception, one far more insidious. And I had no idea. Not until the foil backing from a pill on our bathroom rug. Not until that sliver of metal cracked the surface of a reality I had trusted. The fallout was instantaneous. She called me 5 hours later. I didn't answer. Then she texted, Nathan, please, call me. I didn't. The next morning, another message. I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't. Please talk to me. I knew what she was doing. Clinging to the idea that maybe it wasn't what it looked like. That maybe she could still salvage something from the wreckage. But she was wrong. There was nothing left to salvage. I gave the envelope 2 days to do its damage. Then I arranged the meeting. Not with her. With Gregory. I called him from a private number and told him to meet me at the same rooftop bar where we first spoke. He showed up late, looking thinner, hollow-eyed. He spotted me from across the terrace and hesitated, his whole body stiff with dread, then approached. "I'm not here to fight," he said quickly, taking a seat. "If that's what you think, I'm not here to fight either." He looked surprised. "Then what?" I placed the second envelope on the table. He stared at it. "What is that?" "The rest of your life." He didn't move. "You're a father, Gregory," I said quietly. "To 2 kids you never knew were yours. You've been one longer than you've known Eleanor." He froze. "I had the tests done," I continued. "Back when I found the foil. I didn't want to believe it, but I needed the truth." He picked up the envelope like it weighed 100 pounds, slid out the paper, scanned the results. Silence. His mouth moved once, twice. No sound came out. "I don't need your reaction," I said. "This isn't about guilt. It's not even about you. But you need to know what you've done." He began, then stopped. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't. It doesn't matter. The damage is done." He looked up at me, eyes glassy. "What are you going to do?" I leaned back. "Nothing." "What?" "I'm not going to fight you. Not in court. Not in public. Not even in private. I'm done with both of you." "But the kids," I cut him off, "are not mine." He winced like I'd hit him. "They were never mine," I said. "You don't get to be angry. You don't get to feel betrayed. You made your choices, and now you get the consequences." He nodded slowly, staring down at the envelope like it might combust in his hands. "You should tell her," I added, rising from the table. He looked up. "Tell her what?" "That I gave you the results. That I'm not angry anymore." "That you're not." "No," I said. "I'm something worse." He didn't ask what. He didn't need to. That night, Eleanor showed up at my door. I didn't answer. She rang the bell 3 times, each one more frantic than the last. Then silence. I watched from the upstairs window as she sat on the porch, legs folded under her like a child, arms hugging herself. She stayed there for over an hour. Then, finally, she left. I moved quickly after that. Sold the house. Transferred my accounts. Vanished from every social media platform we'd ever shared. I even changed my number. Every tie severed. Every trace erased. By the time she realized I was gone, it was already too late. I didn't leave a note. I didn't need to. She knew what she had done. And now, she would live with it, every day, in the mirror, in the silence of a house that used to be filled with laughter, in the faces of children who would one day ask questions she couldn't answer. But it wasn't just about leaving. It was about rebuilding, about reclaiming myself from the ashes. The truth didn't destroy me, it freed me. It stripped away the lies, the obligations, the years I'd spent loving a fiction. I started fresh. New city, new job, new name on the mailbox, no wedding ring. Just me, alive, and for the first time in years, whole. And yet, there's one last thing you should know. The real twist in the story. It came 3 weeks after I disappeared. A letter, forwarded by my attorney from my old address. Not from Eleanor. Not from Gregory. From someone else entirely. A woman named Melanie. She was quiet in her words. Careful. Respectful. But in her final paragraph, she wrote, "I believe I may be Gregory's ex-wife. I only recently learned about your situation through a mutual acquaintance. I think we need to speak. Because the man you think you've left behind, he's not done yet." I almost didn't respond to Melanie's letter. By then, I'd buried it all, or so I thought. I had a new place, a new rhythm, a new silence that felt like mine. The days moved differently, slower but steadier. I wasn't healed, that would take longer, but I wasn't bleeding anymore. Then one morning, 3 weeks after her letter arrived, I pulled it from the drawer where I'd hidden it, read it again, and something inside me shifted. It wasn't the name Gregory that made me curious. It was her line, "He's not done yet." So I called. She answered immediately, her voice firm but kind. "Nathan." "Yes," I said. "This is overdue." "I'm glad you reached out," she replied. "We agreed to meet in a public park in a neighboring city." Her suggestion. Neutral ground. Late afternoon, the kind of time that casts everything in amber light. She was already seated when I arrived. Early 40s. Neatly dressed. Composed. But I noticed the same weariness around her eyes I'd seen in my own reflection these past few months. We exchanged pleasantries. Nothing emotional. Just the basics. Then she got to the point. "I was married to Gregory for 6 years," she said. "We divorced 3 years ago." I nodded, letting her speak. I didn't leave him because of an affair, she continued. I left because I found out he'd lied about, well, everything. Investments, business trips, even his past. He's a compulsive manipulator. He draws people in, makes them feel important, seen, and then he takes. I waited. There was another woman, she said. Not just during our marriage. After. Multiple, actually. But there was one in particular, someone he seemed to fixate on. Someone he bragged about breaking. I blinked. You mean Eleanor? She nodded. Yes, though he never said her name. Just called her the one who kept crawling back. A chill ran down my spine. Melanie looked at me carefully. I've been tracking him. Not officially, no private investigators or anything. But I know where he moves, who he contacts. And recently, he's been reaching out to your wife again. My mouth dried. That's not possible. I thought so too, she said. Until I found a photo. She slid her phone across the table. It was grainy, obviously taken from a distance, a parking lot. Maybe, but unmistakable. Eleanor, getting into Gregory's car. 3 days ago. I stared at the screen like it might blink and disappear. Like this was a dream I'd wake from. She's back with him, Melanie said quietly. Or trying to be. It shouldn't have surprised me. But it did. I thought she'd learned. I thought the humiliation, the exposure, the DNA results, all of it, would have scorched whatever bridge existed between them. But no. Some bridges don't burn. They rot. And people walk across them anyway, even as they sink. I left the park without saying much. Melanie didn't press. She just gave me a nod, a kind of solidarity you don't need to explain. I drove for hours afterward. No destination. Just road. Just sky. Just this hollow weight that settled in my chest like smoke in a sealed room. What was I supposed to do now? I'd already divorced her. I'd taken back my life, my name, my pride. I'd walked away. But still it stung. Not because she betrayed me again. Because I'd believed, in some quiet, shameful part of me, that the wreckage had taught her something. And now, I realized, Eleanor wasn't sorry. She was addicted. Not to Gregory. Not even to cheating. To the feeling of escape. Of stepping outside her life. Just far enough to pretend she was someone else. And Gregory? He was just the mirror she used to see that fantasy reflected back. I decided to see her one last time. Not for closure. Not for forgiveness. For finality. I waited outside her building the next morning. She came out late. Hair damp, coat zipped high, face hidden behind sunglasses. She looked tired. Hollow. Like someone living in aftermath. When she saw me, she stopped cold. Nathan. I didn't speak at first. Just let the moment stretch. She looked thinner. Not just physically. Like she'd been scraped down to the bone and hadn't bothered to rebuild. I heard. I said finally. About you and him. Her face flickered. Not surprise. Not shame. Just fatigue. It's not what you think. I laughed once, sharp and dry. Don't. Just don't. She nodded slowly. I know how it looks. How it is, Eleanor. I know exactly how it is. She stepped closer, voice low. I didn't go to him because I love him. I went because I didn't know where else to go. That's not an excuse. I'm not making excuses, she said. I'm just telling you the truth. Now, I asked. After all this time? She looked down. I didn't soften. I buried everything, Eleanor, I said. The marriage, the lies, the pain. I buried it all. But you dug it back up. I'm sorry, she whispered. No, I replied. You're sorry you were caught. You're sorry for the consequences. But you're not sorry for the choice. Silence stretched between us. Then I handed her a small box. She looked at it, confused. What's this? The last thing that ties me to you. Inside, the keys to our old house, my wedding ring, and the copy of our marriage license, now voided and stamped. She looked like she might cry. I hoped she would. But she didn't. She just nodded. And I turned and walked away. It's been a year. I don't know where Eleanor is now. I don't care. I don't follow her. Don't ask mutual friends. Don't check. She's a ghost. So is Gregory. But not my ghost. They haunt each other now, and that's fitting. I've moved on. I'm not in love again. I'm not ready for that. But I have peace. I have mornings where I wake up and don't feel the weight of someone else's choices pressing on my chest. I have dinners with friends where I don't flinch at mentions of betrayal or loss. I have freedom. And sometimes, when I walk through the city at dusk, I pass by a boutique hotel with dark windows and wonder if she's there. I don't stop. I don't look up. I just keep walking. Because some truths break you. But some truths, The ones you uncover yourself, fight through, survive, they become your armor. And I wear mine well.